So this is the fourth and final of my FRED Talk videos. This is downtime. Defects, overproduction, work in progress, non-standardization, transportation, inventory, motion, excess processing. I love to tell a story about the Mike Tyson quotation. He said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, my story is very simple. I was taking a class. I already took the black belt course in Lean Six Sigma. I was well on my way to getting a master's degree in business administration. My organization said, okay, Fred, you have to go and take this other course on process improvement. I spent the whole week telling everybody how smart I was, how I was the master of process improvement. I knew everything. And so then at the end of the week, they said, okay, we're gonna take this little exercise. You're gonna get a notebook, we're gonna take you to a food court, and you're gonna watch different restaurants, and you're gonna come back and you're gonna tell us all the ways that they could have improved their processes. So there I was. I felt myself walking into that quotation, that Mike Tyson quotation. It was like, wait a minute. What did we learn this week? Here I am on the line. I gotta produce. I gotta make decisions. I gotta give recommendations. I gotta tell them how they can improve their processes. What was that plan that I had? There was this idea. There was that idea. Then I remembered. There's the downtime acronym. All I have to do with the downtime is remember it, take a little while to understand what it means, and then go down the list. So defects, overproduction, work in progress, non-standardization, transportation, inventory, motion, excess processing. I don't even have to remember all of them. And some of them, they're kind of self-explanatory. So defects, look at the business, whatever business it is. It can be a manufacturing business, it can be a service organization, it can be even your own individual work center. You look for defects. Look at somebody doing the process, or look at, imagine yourself looking at yourself doing the process. There's a defect, there's a defect. There's a defect. A defect, just what it sounds, they're doing something wrong. Why is it, we did this 100 times, we got it done wrong 70 times. How can we manufacture defects out of the system? So how can we do this thing poka-yoke? How can we idiot-proof it? How can we make it so even when we're tired, even when we're thinking about other things, how can we simplify this process so that it's so easy we can never jill it up. We can never jack or jill it up, right? So that's what defects is. There's a defect, there's a defect, there's a defect. And you say, okay, you know what? This is how we could simplify it. Maybe we could have flashing lights. Maybe we could make like a plastic, we could put tape everywhere so we know exactly where to put things so things don't get unorganized. Or maybe we could have like a big rubber thing which protects us, or maybe there's a sensor or something. Every time something goes wrong, we know and we stop halfway through. So defects, overproduction. What is overproduction? Overproduction, what I just did. I kept explaining things over and over again. A lot of times in a service business, if there's a long line, you'll see the person at the front of the line having these conversations. This person is focusing so much on giving excellent customer service that they get preoccupied with talking to the customers, or we're producing something that doesn't need to be produced. One of the big, exciting stories of the 1980s is when companies started producing just in time. They produced it just when it was ordered. So if we can decrease overproduction. Now what is overproduction? We get so excited by what we can do, our ability to do what we do. Sometimes we forget that we actually have to sell the product. So overproduction is the O. And if we just look, we'll see there's an example of overproduction. There's another. So work in progress. The W stands for work in progress. A lot of times we will, if you work in a company with emails, I will open up an email, I won't make a decision on it, I won't respond, I'll put it down, and then I'll open up another email. And then I'll open up another email. And then I'll open up another email. And then I'll open up another application on my computer. And pretty soon I have all these things open, and I realize I never even made a decision or answered that first email. Now the second email, and it's weighing me down. The theory with work in progress is if I do one thing and stay with it, then it'll be faster. So much faster than if I open up 500 things. Now on a production line, if we start this process, then we start this process, then we start this. The classic example is the automobiles companies. Like Ford would make 100,000 automobiles at a time, or 10,000. So they would start making 10,000 steering wheels. Then they would make 10,000 doors. Then they would make 10,000 of this. And it was like a big snake going through a thing. The idea is if we do it one at a time, a lot of times we can do it more productive. Then the N stands for non-standardization. If I do it this way, and the next time I do it that way, and the next time I do it that, or if you have a business, this person's doing it this way, that person's doing it that way. A lot of times we find ways that we can improve. And it's like, yeah, of course, that would have been a lot faster. So non-standard. Now, sometimes in lean, we can have one person stay with the entire assembly process. And so maybe he or she can do one thing better. Like when you look at schools, if you have 8 sections of the school, it's slower if you have to do everything exactly the same. Sometimes people know more than the other, so maybe we're not going to do everything exactly the same. Anyways, it's something to think about. The N stands for non-standardization, whether we do a lean mentality where people can be a little bit different, or we do the Six Sigma where everything has to be exactly the same. Looking at your business, looking at your process, if you look for non-standardization, you will find ways to decrease downtime. So the T stands for transportation. And then we're going to skip ahead. M stands for motion. So motion is if I'm moving around within a work center, and I have to go up here, and then I have to go down here, then I have to go down here, and then whereas if I eliminate motion, I can put everything up here, so it's easier for me. So is it ergonomically, it's easier, and it's less bending and stretching. That's motion. Transportation is if I have to transport things from this side of the maybe building, or this side of the city, or this side of the country, and then I have to transport it all the way over here for step 2. Then for step 3, I have to transport it all the way back over here, and then I transport it all the way back over there. So sometimes it's confusing what's the difference between transportation and motion. And you know what? It doesn't really matter. If we mislabel things, it doesn't. The idea is we're just using this to get more ideas anyway. So motion, you might say, is moving from up here to down here within a work center, and then maybe transportation is moving things from one work center to another work center, and then we're all mangled up and it looks like a big pile of spaghetti. The spaghetti diagram is a way maybe to help both transportation and motion. So transportation inventory. So inventory means that we have stuff that we created but we weren't able to sell. And so the idea is if we can decrease our inventory, we can become a lot more productive. And one thought is to not create anything until after it's sold. So we have a prototype. Maybe that doesn't always work, but instead of creating like 100,000 units or 10,000 units, or writing all of these things, what if we get in front of the actual customer and say, do you like this? So that's the inventory. Then the motion, then the XE stands for excess processing. And just exactly how it sounds. We don't have to process things. It can mean excess packaging, excess processing. We're doing it, over and over rather than just producing what's asked for. There we have the Downtime acronym: defects, overproduction, work in progress, non-standardization, transportation, inventory, motion, excess processing. And like I say, this worked phenomenally well for me, especially in that example I gave you. I was sitting there, my ego had written this humongous check, and I had to cash it. So I had my notebook, and I was able to go through and look at this restaurant, and I was able to go through look at that restaurant, look at that restaurant. We came to the end of it, and the people in the class with me were like, how did you know? How did you come up with all those ideas? And I've said, it wasn't me. I took what the great ones like Edwards Deming or Eliyahu Goldratt, or the people that actually created the Downtime acronym, and I just stood on their shoulders. So if you will stand on their shoulders and use this Downtime acronym, I'm telling you, you can absolutely increase production, you can improve quality, you can decrease expenses, and you can decrease downtime. And by doing that, it can help you live your fantasies.